Allies or Enemies by Peachiibunnii, Chapter 14. Scar knew the blissful dates and time spent with Grin wouldn't last forever. Some days he would find himself genuinely too busy for the other, and Grin's family stole him away for the day. Scar wouldn't consider himself to be the possessive type, but when he only got to see Grin for 3 or 4 days out of the week, he found himself becoming grumpy. Logically, he knew he couldn't spend every minute of every hour of every day with the other. Ever since the night they first hung out, though, Scar had been wanting more. Not physically, or more from the other, just more of the other. He wanted more time spent together. The same things they'd always do, just more of it. Watching shows, grading homework, not quite cuddling, but cuddling on the couch together. Getting coffee after work and grading papers in the coffee shop. Scar even craved that. Even when Grian would get lost in thought and forget to speak to Scar or acknowledge him for 20 minutes. Scar would take that over being separated from the blonde. Scar tore his eyes away from the computer screen he'd been staring at while zoning out. He heard a small knock on his door, expecting to see a student with a question or Tommy to see them after class. When Scar looked, he perked up when he saw Grian leaning in, fist against the doorframe. The blonde smiled as he stood up properly, shoulder bag dangling back at his hip. "You seemed really focused. I didn't want to interrupt," he confessed, stepping closer into the room. Scar smiled fondly, leaning away from his computer to give Grian his full attention. "You could never interrupt me. If anything, all of this work interrupts the time I get to spend with you." Scar's careless flirting easily fell from his mouth, always making the blonde laugh and become flustered. "Hush!" Grian waved his hand. "I was just stopping by to maybe, see if you perhaps were free tonight?" Grian asked quietly, bringing his hands together nervously. Scar frowned at the question, though. "Oh, I'm sorry, I really do, but tonight is the one night I have a really important meeting I can't miss." Scar frowned deeply. He finally had a set date with Exuma to solve the warden problem. It's like he can just it's like he can just reschedule and miss it. He'd basically be begging to have a warrant on his head if he dared to disobey their governor. Grian frowned at this. "No, I get it. I just felt bad because I always either have to leave early or my sister needed me for something. Just checking to see if tonight would have been a nice time to make up for some of all the lost time," he explained, though he still seemed upset. "It would have been, and believe me, I do want to spend time with you. If this meeting was reschedulable, I would reschedule. Unfortunately, it just isn't, and I can't miss it." Scar frowned now, too, reaching a hand out for the blonde. Green smiled, reaching for the other's hand to intertwine their fingers momentarily. "Tomorrow night? As far as I'm aware, I don't have anything planned, and Pearl doesn't have ideas to steal me away just yet." Scar thought about it, biting his lip. He felt Grin's hand loosen as the smile faded. "I'm sorry. I know our schedules don't work perfectly, but I'll make time, I promise," Scar whispered, squeezing his hand gently. "Once I'm done with this meeting, and I go through my second meeting tomorrow, I'll let you know every minute I'm available. I'll even stop assigning homework if it means less to grade and more time for you." Scar laughed, refusing to let the blonde go until he cracked a smile. Green squeezed his hand before finally letting it go. "All right, but you'd better text me and not break that promise," he glared playfully, while moving to hold his bag once again. I will." Scar was basically pleading, pressing his own hands together. "As soon as I know my free time, I'll offer it. I'll offer up all of my time for you." Scar smiled. "I love spending time with you." Scar watched the way Green's face softened, reddening a little. He'd seen the blonde flustered and shy like this before, but knowing every time was from Scar's flirting gave the other a bit of an ego about it. "I also love it when you get all embarrassed." Green squawked, mouth gaping momentarily, before he cleared his throat. "I am not at all embarrassed," he protested, though his face and body language said otherwise. "Just text me your availability, and send more pictures of jelly," Green grumbled, his fingers fidgeting together. "Anything for you, my dear." Scar pressed his cheeks into his palm, staring up at Green with loving eyes. Green made a fake gagging gesture before turning back to Scar. "Oh, I'm sorry, your highness. Maybe you prefer something more romantic?" he teased, moving to stand up from his desk, supporting himself on the edge of it as he walked around to stand beside Grian. The way Grian reacted, the way Grian reached out to stand beside, the way Grian reached out to offer support and help him walk the short distance didn't go unnoticed. What nickname would you prefer? Scott asked, leaning against the desk as he took Grian's hand in his. Grian smiled, letting out a small huff of amusement. I'm not really an affectionate, nicknamey, touchy-feely kind of person, he admitted softly. A bald-faced lie. Scott pulled the other's hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to his unofficial partner's knuckle. I know you better than anyone else, and I know you're lying to me. The way Grian's smile dropped gave him away as well. Scott smirked, holding Grian's hand close to his mouth as he spoke. You wouldn't prefer basic and common nicknames. You definitely would prefer something more along the lines of Scott thought, tilting his head back and forth before perking up. He looked down at Grian, easily towering over him when he was standing. Sweetheart? Scar asked, not getting much of a reaction. I don't think I'm very sweet for that to be fitting, Grian laughed, letting the other go on his miniature hunt for the perfect nickname. Scar frowned. Well, it's not supposed to be what you think you are, it's what you are to me. Scar smiled once again, watching Grian give him a questionable look. Scar got it. You, the light of my life, Scar spoke softly, watching Grian's entire demeanor change. Grian gaped quietly for a moment before gently pulling his hand away from Scar's mouth. Scar, I don't think you can't disagree, Scar stated rather bluntly. He gently reached for the other's shoulder, large hands sliding to his elbows to hold him gently. With a light in a lot of people's lives, you just happen to also be mine. Scar mumbled before leaning down to press a gentle kiss to Grian's curls. Grian was honestly shocked at how gentle and sweet Scar had suddenly become. The blonde moved forward to wrap his arms around his neck in a tight hug. Scar immediately reciprocated, keeping his arms low against the other's back to avoid even grazing at Scar's. You're so gentle with me, Grian whispered, relaxing in the hold. I'm careful with the things that mean a lot to me, Scar mumbled into Grian's ear. Giving you nicknames and spending all of my free time with you is the bare minimum, and I'm sorry you even had to ask for time together. Scar frowned. Hey, none of that. Grian laughed softly, pulling away so he could place his hands on Scar's shoulders. You're a full-time working teacher who, might I add, has a cat and a disability that needs a lot of attention. Your needs in life come before being around me. Don't try to convince me of that either. It can't work. It won't work. Grian pressed a finger into Scar's shoulder with a glaring look. Oh, so demanding, Scar seized, hands creeping up so his thumbs rubbed against Grian's back, edging at the bottom of the scars. Grian didn't mind as he reached up to take a hold of Scar's face. I'm not demanding anything, just stating facts that's common knowledge. Grian sighed before gently patting Scar's chest. Anyway, I should get home myself. These papers won't be grading themselves, he mumbles, gently pulling away. Scar frowned at the loss of contact, but was pleased Grian stayed so close. I have that meeting too, Scar sighed, bending down to give Grian's head another kiss. Let me know when you get home, and that you got home safe. Grian nodded slowly, looking at Scar for a long pause before stepping closer to stand on his toes. He pecked Scar's cheek with a quick kiss before lowering himself to the ground once more. I will, don't worry. I'll see you tomorrow, and then after tomorrow night, we'll plan something. Scar reached up to press a hand to his cheek as Grian slipped out of his grasp. Yeah, Scar whispered. Grian noticed as he turned and laughed softly. Did that really fluster you? Grian asked, making his way to the door. What? Scar laughed nervously, waving him off. No, Scar obviously lied, glancing away from the other before laughing again. Grian smiled at the other and waved. Alright, well, bye for now. Grian waved to him before stepping out of the door finally. Scar immediately mourned the loss, stepping back to sit in his desk chair. He groaned, setting his forehead on the desk to close his eyes and think. He was in deep with this man, The thoughts of spending time with Grian was the only thing keeping him going at this point. That and jelly. He sat up and moved to stand, pulling all of his papers and notebooks together in a pile. He could source it out. He could source it at home. The thing he should be focusing on was meeting with Exuma. He shoved his belongings in his bag and grabbed his cane to take his leave. He always hated these meetings. As much as he loved being the hero of the city, he would have much preferred to just be the hero instead of follow the restrictions the government's council gave him. He walked past the posters in the halls, passing students and teachers alike. He gave a wave to Tango as he left, making his way to his car. He fished his keys out of his bag and climbed in, dropping his bag in the passenger seat. He sat in the car for a moment, mentally preparing himself before making the drive to the governor's office. In all honesty, he'd made the drive before. He even showed up in a suit ready to discuss things before, but today felt so much harder than before. Before, he never had to worry about Grian. He didn't have to hide anything because there was nobody to hide things from. He started his car and backed out of the parking lot. There was no charming male with a smile who lit the room. He pulled out onto the main road to begin his drive. There wasn't anyone to keep safe, and there certainly wasn't someone to call his own. Now that there was, though, he had to divide his time and fit said light of his life into those small slots available, but only when his schedule was also free. Needless to say, having a meeting with their city's governor and being the famous superhero was something he needed to keep hidden, not only because Green's reaction stressed him out, but because his knowledge of the situation would immediately put him in danger. Skull wasn't stupid, after all. He watched superhero movies and read comics growing up. Any love interests or family that knew were immediately at risk of being kidnapped, threatened, or killed. Cub being in danger scared Scar. He could have lost his best friend. But Green being in danger? The thought alone made Scar sad. The entire concept was saddening. Although he couldn't compare the two, they hurt equally as much. Scar pulled up to the locked gates, deciding he'd keep it all a secret. For now. Maybe one day he'll tell Grian, but maybe after they're married. Actually, probably before. Scar shook his head, the entire thought of marriage making him flustered again. He waited for security to check his car and look his ID over. Once inside the parking lot, he was led inside and down a hall. Scar had done this walk a handful of times, already expecting Zuma in his office when Scar walked into the room. Once inside, the door was shut behind him, and he walked to his designated chair. He pulled his cane into his lap, laying it across his legs as he sat across from his official. Exuma, their beloved and all-powerful governor, looked up from his paperwork to look at Scar. He blinked behind his helmet's lens, refusing to take his helmet off in front of anyone. He protected his identity, and in all honesty, kept him safe from prying eyes trying to pick his brain about his laws and choices to ban hybrids and mutants. Scar had yet to figure it out himself, but he could understand the hard choice the other had to make. After all, it's two sides of a coin where some were pleased and others were upset about the choice. Majority vote overrides any sort of personal preference in their line of work. Thank you for meeting with me on such short notice. I know your civilian job. I know with your civilian job, it can be hard to not interfere with things. The masked man cleared his throat before setting his papers down finally. I think you can assume why you're here after the incident. Exuma's eyes turned downward at his words. Although Scar couldn't see his mouth, he could confidently say the other was frowning. The warden. Scar frowned, hating the word coming from his mouth. Images of the police clouded his mind, trying hard to shake the memory. Scar shivered and turned his gaze back to his governor. Exuma didn't seem pleased with Scar's answer. Yes. Well, he paused, sighing heavily into his helmet. That is something to talk about. How do you know what it's called? He asked Scar, as if it were a rhetorical question. As if it weren't a rhetorical question. Scar swallowed, feeling that immediate wave of anxiety hit. It was like when he was young and his mouth found out he'd stuck animals into and their mother. It was like when he was young, and his mother found out he'd snuck animals into their home. Exuma knew, and he knew Scar knew what he was talking about. I may have caught the name in passing, with Exuqua, Scar admitted. There was no point in fighting it. There was no point in lying. If Scar were going to be punished for essentially hanging out with a wanted vigilante, now would be the time for it. And how close are you with Exuqua? Exuma asked, suddenly stopping Scar's train of thought. Scar faltered momentarily, thinking back to the conversation with Cub the night he'd accidentally been shot. Uh, I think, Scar began, remembering a handful of nights ago the other had fallen asleep and even let him touch his wings. Scar bit his lip and stared at the papers on his governor's desk, glancing over the pictures and papers printed of the anti-hero. I think we're not exactly friends, but I think he trusts me more than anyone else. Maybe, Scar added on before looking up, watching Zugwa stand. And if you asked him to work with you? Exuma asked, walking to a shelf on the wall to pick up a suitcase. Scar watched in confusion, watching the man come back to his desk. I mean, I don't think I know him that well, Scar admitted. He could do a handful of things. Laugh in my face, ask me if I had my head, tell me no, want something in return. Perfect. Exuma stopped his hero's rant. He opened the suitcase and sat back down, pulling a device from the box. Ask him. If he agrees willingly, tell him to put this on as a sign of trust. If he tells you no, you're going to need to get this on him. Once it's locked onto a target, we'll have confirmation. All you have to do is get this on him. What? Scar asked, staring at the odd device. It looked like a thick piece of metal. A bracelet cuff almost. It had an odd assortment of lights on it, but there was more important questions running through his mind. What does it do? It monitors a heartbeat and tracks the location of the person wearing it, so we can easily track his location and force him to work with us. The tracking is so we can find him if he says no. To track him on the mission I'm sending you on, and just in case he tries to change his mind, he won't have another choice. Scar looked horrified. He glanced at the device again, his hands not making a motion for it in the slightest. If he forced Exalqua to work with him, he'd only be going against the thing he'd been trying to achieve for months. He was trying to prove he wasn't like the rest of the city for this reason. He wanted to let Exalqua choose to trust him. He wanted the others to trust him, not force him into doing the government's dirty work. Can't, he found himself whispering. I'm slowly earning his trust. If I do this now, he'll never trust me again. He only just. I hear you, and I understand. But we don't have time to make friends. People are dying. Exuma lowered his head momentarily. I wish I didn't have to force you to do this. I do, Scar. People are dying, though. Good people who don't deserve to die at the hands of monsters without a fighting chance. We need Exelqua so we can figure out what we're up against. No one understands the monsters from the Undercity or hybrids better than an actual hybrid themselves. Scar slouched again. Scar slouched slightly in his chair, staring at the device. He swallowed, realizing quickly what it meant to be someone in the position of power. To say yes was to save his city and betray a friend, but to say no was putting the people he was protecting right into harm's way. And if I say no? Scar whispered softly. Exuma set his hands on the desk, clasping together tightly. I'll ask you to from I'll ask you to resign from being Hawkeye. Scar's heart dropped. Being Hawkeye was the only thing keeping him alive. It was the only thing paying his medical bills and providing him with a comfortable apartment to live in. All he ever worried about was his schoolwork and buying groceries. He knew he couldn't afford to live alone or with his disability if he didn't have everything provided to him easily. Scar's eyes caught onto the device again, heart sinking with regret as he reached for it finally. He pulled it into his lap and looked to meet Exuma's eyes. He smiled bittersweet under the helmet and nodded. I'm sorry to make you do this. Scar smiled just as enthusiastically back, fingers digging into the device. That's crazy. No, I don't like this game anymore. Just glad the chapters are back down to 20 minutes because oh my god, that's the thing with me. I don't do shorter videos. I might have to soon enough, but I don't tend to do them. I prefer to keep the chapters as like one. Um, so the longer chapters kill me. But what do you mean? Well, reveals are gonna come out soon, aren't they? Reveals are gonna happen soon enough. That is for sure. And it's not gonna end well. Oh my god, if they do anything with this, they definitely will. The whole thing of like, oh, the governor is anti-hybrid and stuff like that, and it's like, oh yeah, you need to track this hybrid down. Yeah, you don't get a choice, or we're gonna essentially kill you. How nice, how lovely, how. Gosh darn it, I hate capitalism. Let's be honest. Scott would keep doing it if it didn't literally put his life on the line. And the only reason he puts his life on the line is because of capitalism. This better work out. This better have a happy ending. Although, at the beginning of the chapter, the author literally said it's all downhill from here. So, I didn't know this. I thought it was going to be a silly, goofy thing. Never mind. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. If you can. The start of the chapter was nice. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Tell me what you thought in the comments. And I will see you. Bye.